Hi everyone, welcome. I'm Nancy Gaetano, and today I'm going to show you how to make my step-by-step sourdough starter. Now the sourdough starter is going to take anywhere from 7 to 10 days. When I initially made my starter almost 2 years ago, which I have right here, I made it in the summer and it took me about 8 days to get it going so that way I can make my sourdough bread. I find in the summer, it's easier to get your sourdough starter, but if you make it in the winter, that's fine too. It might take a little bit longer to get your sourdough starter going to make your sourdough bread. Now I have my sourdough starter here, and I made it in a bowl, and you can see I'm gonna be making some sourdough later. I'm making about 2 loaves of sourdough. I'm gonna wait a couple more hours. It should be good enough to go. But that is my initial sourdough starter that I started almost 2 years ago. So today I'm gonna start it from scratch. I'm gonna start it right from the beginning until it's ready to use. And I'm gonna show you what you need, how to make it. I'm gonna make it as simple as possible. I'm not using a scale. Okay, so I'm not using a scale for this sourdough starter. I'm using a measuring cup for the water as well as the flour. So I want to show you a few things before I get started. I have a glass jar here. This is a 1,000 milliliter jar. Okay, so it's longer, okay, but it's not too wide. And here I have a glass bowl, that's 950 milliliters. It's a lot wider and it's not as deep. I like to use the bowl, like I have my sourdough starter here, because I'll tell you why. I'll just give you my little trick and tip. When I'm removing the sourdough, I don't want to pour it out. And I don't want to really get in there and deep try to remove my sourdough starter. I'd prefer to just use a wider bowl, glass bowl, and then just scoop what I need, and then, get my sourdough bread started. Oh gosh, that's a tongue twister. So that's what I use. It's a matter of preference, and you can use a deeper jar to get your sourdough starter going, or you can use a glass bowl that's wider and not as deep. Totally up to you, but this is what I'm going to be using. So I just wanted to show you that. Now, what you're going to need is a few things to get your sourdough starter started. Glass bowl in my case, so you can use a glass jar. I like to use a rubber band just to see and monitor how far my sourdough starter has risen. You'll need a spoon. I always have a spatula handy, and I'll tell you why. And I also have a plate. Whenever I'm using or mixing the sourdough starter, you want to make sure you put your your spoon or your spatula onto that plate, because if you're going to use your counter, the sourdough starter gets very sticky when you're mixing water and flour. And if it dries out, it's really hard to clean. You'll also need water, okay, and I'll tell you the measurement of water, and you'll also need bread flour. You can use all-purpose flour, you can also use wheat flour. For today's purposes, for the sourdough starter, I'm gonna show you what I'm using, the measurements, and a few tips. So let me show you what you're going to do for day 1 in getting your sourdough starter started. Okay, day 1 of making my sourdough starter. I'm going to take half a cup, 125 milliliters, take the bread flour, and I'm just going to even it out here, half a cup into my glass bowl. I'm going to add the water. I'm going to move this aside here so you can see. And the water, I'm using bottled water. You can also use filtered water. And you're going to place it into your bowl with the flour. You're going to pour it in. There we are. So I have the water and the flour. I'm just gonna take the spoon and I'm gonna mix it in. I'm gonna mix it together. It's gonna form a very pasty texture of the flour and water. You see how you see these lumps? That's okay. You just wanna make sure you mix it until you don't see any more flour. All right. And I wanna give this first mix a really good mix. And I'm trying not to get it on the sides here because it does dry out on the side of the bowl. And I want to avoid that. I like to keep my jar or bowl very clean just so I can see the process of the bubbling once the sourdough starter gets going. All right. So there it is. That's my day 1 of sourdough starter. And I'm going to use this as a spatula just to clean this out here. Clean out the spoon. And I'm going to give you a little tip on this later. And what I'm going to do is use the spatula to clean the sides of the glass bowl. Just to keep it clean. See how you get that? I don't want it to dry out, so I want to clean it. And I do this every time I either make sourdough and I'm removing the sourdough starter out of here. I want to make sure that the side of the bowl is clean. It's just me. Okay, so that is my sourdough starter. Look at that. That's day 1. And I have the rubber band here just to show where it started. Okay, and that's all you have to do for day 1. You've mixed your flour and your water, same measurement, half a cup and half a cup. And you mix it together and this is it. Now, all I'm gonna do is simply place the lid from the glass bowl on top. I'm not going to seal it. I'm just gonna leave it just like this for 24 hours. And I try to feed the starter every day around the same time. So it's about 9 a.m. in the morning, and tomorrow morning, more or less, if it's 9:30 or 8:45, more or less 24 hours, you're gonna give it the next feeding. So I'll show you what happens on day 2. Here we are on day 2 of feeding my starter. I'm gonna take the lid off. You could see that there is some bubbles forming, but nothing is really happening. We're only on day 2. Now, to feed the starter for day 2, I'm now using 1/3 of a cup of flour, a bread flour, which is 80 milliliters. So I'm going to add the bread flour. I'm just going to even it out. Not quite. There we go. So 1/3 cup of bread flour, in there it goes. And I'm adding 1/3 cup of room temperatured water, which is a bottled water. So I'm gonna add that in. And all I'm gonna do is mix it together with the starter from yesterday. I'm gonna combine it. So from here on in, I'm only going to be adding 1/3 cup of bread flour, 1/3 cup of room temperature water, and I'm using bottled water. But like I said yesterday, you can use filtered water if you prefer. Mix it well. Again, I have my spatula handy. And I'm gonna scrape down the sides of the bowl just to clean out the sides of the starter here, because like I said, it does dry out. Go right around the bowl. There we are. Take the rest of the starter on the spatula here. All I'm gonna do is cover it with the lid. Again, I'm not gonna seal it. I'm just gonna leave it just like that. And you could place it on your counter until tomorrow, another 24 hours. So it's about 9:08 right now. About 9:08 tomorrow, I'll be doing the same thing for day 3. Moving on to day 3 of my sourdough starter. So I removed it off my counter. Here is a sourdough starter. you can see there's tiny little air bubbles, and you can see that the dark gray spot there. That's just the flour fermenting. It's doing its work. And now on day 3, all I'm going to do is I'm going to add a 1/3 cup, 80 milliliters of bread flour. I'm gonna place the bread flour onto the measuring cup here. I'm gonna even it out. Place it into the sourdough starter. And I'm gonna place a 1/3 cup of water. So day 2 rather, and day 3, I'm doing the same thing. A 1/3 cup and a 1/3 cup, and you're gonna take it and mix it in with the starter. And all I'm doing here is mixing it in. Like you're gonna make pancakes. That's what the batter is gonna look like. All right, I gave it a good mix, 30 seconds. Spatula. Once again, I don't want the starter to stick to my spoon, so I'm gonna clear it up here. I'm just gonna clean the edges of the glass bowl here. Once again, I'm just gonna clean this off here. I want to just give you a little tip of the what you do with your spoon and the spatula. What I do is I place it in the sink and place it over water, because once this dries out, it's almost like, I want to say a cement or a glue. It's going to be really hard to clean this out if it dries out. So I like to run it through water, and then I give it a wash. I'll place this aside. Now I'm going to place the lid back on. I'm not going to seal it. I'm just going to place the lid back on, leave it on my counter, and I'll show you what the next step is on day 4. Day 4 of my sourdough starter. Now it's very hot and humid here, and the fermentation is really happening. I want to show you what it looks like on day 4. I want you to see these bubbles. That means it's fermenting, it's doing its thing, it's working really well. I want you also to see where I started. See where that rubber band is? So day 4, you can see that it's rising and fermenting. Today, on day 4, I'm going to discard half of the sourdough starter. And to do that, what I'm going to do is take a separate bowl, and I'm going to discard half of the starter. And I'm just going to take a scoop here and discard half, place it in a separate bowl. So that's half. Let me show you. So I'm moving that aside, and here it's half. Actually, this is where you need to scrape down the side so you can see. I like to do this so I can see where I started and where I am now after discarding for the first time on day 4. I'm back where I started. I'm going to add a 1/3 cup, which is 80 milliliters of bread flour. Add 80 milliliters, a 1/3 of a cup of flour. Okay. And I'm going to add a 1/3 cup of water. Now, all I'm simply going to do is mix it. Now, if you need to add a little bit more flour, you can do that if you find it's too runny. It's just the temperature here. It's very humid and hot. The door is constantly being open. Heat's coming into the house, the environment. It's getting into this sourdough starter. So I want you to know that you can work with it. I'm going to mix this very well, just until I don't see any more flour. It's okay that it becomes lumpy just as it is. That's fine. I'm going to remove some of the sourdough starter that's on the spoon here. It's just going to be easier to clean. And once again, I'm going to scrape down the sides. Just clean it out so you can see the fermenting happening. Okay, so you can see it's a paste. Really, it's a thick paste. After day 4 of discard, I've discarded half and I've fed it a 1/3 cup of water and a 1/3 cup of bread flour. I've mixed it. All I'm gonna do is place the lid back on. I'm not gonna seal it. Wait 24 hours and then I'll show you day 5. And here we are on day 5. Let me show you what the starter looks like. See those bubbles? That means the starter is really getting strong. All we're going to do today is we're going to feed it. Again, 1/3 cup of water and a 1/3 cup of bread flour. So I'm going to start off with the flour. Place it in there. And a 1/3 cup of water. Again, room temperature water, either bottled water or filtered water. Pour it in. I'm gonna mix it together. Now, again, you just wanna combine it. I do wanna say it is 23 degrees in the house. It's very warm outside. It's very hot, I should say. It's very hot. It's 23 degrees in this house, and the temperature can affect the starter. So you want to make sure that the starter has a thick consistency. So if you find that your starter is very watery, you want to make sure you add a little bit more flour just to get it to a thick consistency, just like this. So there it is. That's what you're looking for. If you find that it's pouring a lot faster, that's because you need to add a little bit more of the flour. Just add a teaspoon, mix it in until you get a thicker consistency. It doesn't matter if you use cups or if you use a scale. That can happen based on the temperature of your home. It is very warm, and you know, that can affect your starter. But don't give up. You can't screw this up, really. You're just going to just follow the steps I'm showing you. Right now, this is day 5. Now that I've added the flour and the water, once again, I'm just going to clear the edges with a spatula, just like that. I'm gonna place the lid on the starter, place it on my counter, and wait another 24 hours, and I'll see you on day 6. Here's day 6 of the sourdough starter. Let me show you what it looks like on day 6. There it is. See all those bubbles? That means that the fermentation is happening. We're very close to finalizing this sourdough starter. And again, depending on your temperature at your home, it could take a little longer, especially if you're doing preparing the starter in the winter. So what we're going to do on day 6 is we're going to discard half of the starter. And I'm going to start off by doing that. And again, I don't like to pour it in because then all the starter ends up on the sides and then it dries out. I don't like to do that. All I'm going to simply do is take just a measuring cup, scoop it up, and place it in a separate bowl. Now I can just continue adding the discard here and then placing it in the fridge with the lid on. And, you know, I can make sourdough cinnamon buns, more sourdough bread with this discard. But I don't normally use it. I'm just gonna place it aside for now. So we have half the sourdough starter here. Once again, I'm gonna take a 1/3 cup which is 80 milliliters of bread flour. Now at any point you can add different flour. If you wanna add all-purpose flour, you can do that. I'm just gonna keep it consistent and add the 1/3 cup of flour right in here. And a 1/3 cup of water, room temperature water, either filtered or bottled water. Now I'm simply going to mix in the flour and the water. Just mix it right through until you don't see any more flour. Don't worry if it's lumpy. Okay, that's just about done. Now I'm going to, again, with my spatula, scrape down the sides. Once again, I'm gonna place the lid onto the starter. Do not seal it, just like this. Place it on your counter for 24 hours, and then I'll show you day 7. All right, everyone, here is day 7 of my sourdough starter. Let me show you. It's more than doubled in size. It's definitely fermenting. Beautiful bubbles on the top there. It's ready. Day 7, my sourdough starter is ready. Now, yours may take a little longer, maybe another day or 2. I want to show you and have you take a listen on the sourdough starter. Look at this. See all those bubbles? It's definitely ready for me to make my first loaf of sourdough out of this starter. I want you to look at this. See, as I'm mixing it, those bubbles are still forming. Look at that. You see that right there? They're popping. Definitely ready. So today is day 7 and my sourdough starter is ready. Now, let's say your sourdough starter is not at this point on day 7. What you would do is continue doing what we've been doing. So what you're going to do is you're going to discard half, and you're gonna feed it again with a 1/3 cup of bread flour and a 1/3 cup of water, which is either filtered water or bottled water. Now, you can see that I mixed it and the bubbles are still there. And this is really a science. For me, it is. You cannot fail making a sourdough starter. Follow the steps, and I'm going to show you some tips as well next. Now, if I'm not going to be making sourdough bread today, let's say, and my sourdough is ready, all I'm going to do is going to cover it. I'm going to place it in the refrigerator, and I'm going to seal it. Make sure you seal it when you place it in the refrigerator. And I'm going to leave it in there until I'm ready to make the sourdough. So you can leave it in there for a week, 2, 3. It's happened to me. Where I had to leave it in there. I go on vacation, I leave it in there for like, let's say 2-3 weeks. And then when I'm ready to make the sourdough, all I do is remove the lid, and you're gonna see it's gonna be a firmer texture, and you may even have some liquid forming. It may be blue, purple, gray. You can do one of 2 things. You can dump that water out, or you can actually mix it in, and then you're going to feed it. And what I do is I put a 1/3 cup of bread flour and then a 1/4 cup of water. Again, filtered or bottled. Then I place the lid on it, place it on the counter, and then I wait about 3, 4, sometimes 5 hours for it to ferment. Once it reaches the top, or it's more than doubled in size, I use it to make my sourdough. If it takes a little longer, what you can do is place it in your oven with the oven off and oven light on, and leave it in there for maybe an hour or 2, and then it'll just give it that boost for that temperature to make your sourdough double in size and ferment. So stay tuned. I'm going to give you some more tips on the sourdough starter. And there you have it, everyone. My sourdough starter. I made this sourdough starter in 7 days. I showed you step by step. I want to talk about the tools for sourdough starter. You simply need what I showed you. You don't need to buy extra tools. I used a spoon. I had a spatula. I had a plate that I used throughout the 7 days. Not the same plate, but I did use it. I have a glass bowl. You can also use a jar if you prefer, if you wanted it higher. This one's a little wider, so I can, get the starter to ferment in this bowl as well. I wanted you to know that I personally don't discard. I make my sourdough without discarding. So basically what I'm gonna do is I'm going to make a sourdough loaf today. I'm gonna take what I need for the sourdough from the starter. And then once I've taken the starter that I need to make my sourdough bread, all I'm simply gonna do is I'm going to cover it, I'm going to seal it, and then I'm gonna place it in the refrigerator until I'm ready to make more sourdough. And I usually make 2 to 3 loaves of sourdough per week. If I'm not on holidays or vacation, or if I'm home and have nothing planned, I'll make sourdough as much as I can. I also make sourdough ciabatta buns. You can also make sourdough pancakes. You can make sourdough pizza dough. I'm telling you, you can make so much with this sourdough starter. So now, like I said, I'm gonna take the sourdough I need for my sourdough bread I'm going to be making today. Once I'm done, I'm going to seal it and place it in the refrigerator. If I'm going to be making sourdough tomorrow, what I'm going to do is right in the morning, I'm going to take it out. So let's say I wake up at 7 in the morning. I'm going to take out my sourdough starter out of the refrigerator. I don't let it sit there and come to room temperature. I've never done that. And I'm not going to, because that's just not how I do it. You can if you want, but I'm letting you know how I make my sourdough starter and how I use it. A lot of you have asked, so I'm going to show you. All I'm going to do is take it out. So for example, I'm going to use it today, tomorrow. If I'm going to make sourdough bread again, I'm going to take it out of the refrigerator. It's going to be sealed. I'm going to unseal it. I'm not going to mix it or anything. I'm going to place a 1/3 cup of bread flour and a 1/4 cup of water, room temperature water, either filtered or bottled water. Gonna mix it together. Once it's combined, I'm gonna just place the lid unsealed, just like this, on my counter, and wait until it's actually risen to the top, so it's fermented and it's doubled in size. And sometimes if it's in the winter and it's taking a little longer, what I do is I place it in my oven with the oven off and the oven light on, just to give it a little bit more warmth and let it, speed up the process in fermenting my sourdough starter. So that's another tip. The other thing I wanted to let you know, and I said this early on, I think I was on day 1 or day 2, make sure that once you're done using your tools or utensils, whatever it is that you're using to mix or has touched the sourdough starter, or even when you're making sourdough bread, get a bowl, room temperature water, just place it in the bowl and let it sit there. Because if you let this dry out, it's gonna be like a cement. You literally have to chip away at the starter that's dried up on your utensils, be it a plate, spoon, spatula, whatever it is you're using. And even sometimes I get it on my board, my cutting board, and then as soon as I see it right away, I just get a wet cloth and I just wipe it down because I don't want it to dry on the board. Now, those are my tips on using your tools or utensils in making sourdough starter or sourdough bread. I hope you all enjoyed my step-by-step and how to make my sourdough starter. And if you did, don't forget to like and subscribe. And until next time, thanks so much for watching, everyone. Take care.